Rock human females are visually indistinguishable from human women. The only real way to tell them apart is to check if they are subscribed to the NewWorldReview, which grants any type of human, rock or regular, frequent JoJo content uploaded straight into their YouTube feed, which, to be perfectly frank, you should all want whether you are a rock or not a rock. So actually, I don't know, maybe that's not the best tell after all. Hello and welcome to the NewWorldReview, your source for everything anime and manga, and today we have madness, utter madness to present with chapter 99 of JOJOLION, because just what the hell happened? Still not entirely solid on all of that, but it was hype. It was certainly hype. And this was probably by far the most enjoyable chapter of JOJOLION that I have had the pleasure of reading. And I knew we were in for something pretty special this time around when we began with the very simple words, Rocuments, what they are is, and then proceeded to have a bit of a biology class. But this was very exciting because Araki only really tends to dump masses and masses of information like this when we are certainly approaching the end game of a part. In fact, the whole thing really gave me some nostalgic part 2 vibes, where all of a sudden we were given the background of Cars and the Pillarmen right before launching into our final conflict. I think this is definitely a bit different, because while we now know how Rocuments came to exist, and I suppose exactly what they are, right down to their biological composition, this chapter, still in true JOJOLION style, doesn't answer anywhere near as many questions as it asks. But the first piece of insanity I want to go through is the opening page, which presents us with a collage of history's most famous women, and the claim that in this universe, they were all Rocuments. Or actually, that's not necessarily accurate. It basically says that Rocument women are indistinguishable from human women. So I suppose it's possible that not all of the figures here are Rocuments, perhaps even none of them are Rocuments, and instead this is being used to tell us, hey, you can't tell which of these women is a Rocument or not, which becomes quite interesting in regards to some specific characters. And so what I do see are some very familiar faces, such as Cleopatra, Joan of Arc, Queen Elizabeth I, etc. But there are some even more familiar faces amongst them, such as Enya. But much more surprisingly, and something I didn't notice the first time around, we also have Hermes from part 6, which was unexpected to say the least. But at the same time, it makes perfect sense, really. I mean, it's tricky to keep a handle on because part 8 is more strongly borrowing from part 4, but JOJOLION does take place in 2011, which is the exact same year that Stone Ocean took place in the original universe. So it only stands to reason that there is an alternate Hermes out there in existence, which is very exciting because it's making the alternate universe feel a lot more, complete, I guess. Whereas before, everything felt very part 1 to 4 centric, which also made sense, I guess, because that could have led into a part 9, which more closely resembled 5 and 6, but I don't know about that anymore because things are feeling, like I said, like they're starting to complete here, like we're coming full circle in this entire JoJo business. And not just because of the reference of a single character, but because the journey that we went on during this chapter was essentially one through JoJo history, alternate universe JoJo history, but still, there is a ton of reference in this chapter, many of them confusing my poor brain thing, but still, they're there. What I do want to ask before moving on is, who is the Bikini Woman? If it's a reference to a famous woman or image, then I'm more than happy to admit that I am uncultured swine and just don't know, but she looks very familiar and more strikingly like an in-universe character, plus she gets by far the biggest panel and is thus the focal point. And the only thing that really comes to mind is this Josefumi's mother? You know, the one that basically left him for dead on the beach? Because that tragic story goes on to work quite nicely with what we're told about how Rockhuman mothers rarely have any kind of affection for their children or even a parental relationship. So this whole Josefumi situation could have been one of those rare examples of a Rockhuman mother actually engaging in the art of parentage. However, if that were true, then that would go on to imply that Josefumi was at least part Rockhuman and therefore so is Josuke, which is an awful lot to assume from a picture of one woman in a bikini who bears a mild resemblance at best to Josefumi's mother. So yeah, I think we'll just leave this thought here for now. It is just very interesting that Araki chose this woman to be the focal point though. But the reference in this chapter that most obviously sticks out to me though is of course the stone mask, which is I think the first time that we've seen one in the alternate universe outside of some bonus content in part 7. I mean, feel free to let me know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is our first sighting of a stone mask, isn't it? And on a physique that looks suspiciously like a certain Dio, like a proper Dio as well, not a Diego Brando, which is just a little bit slightly what the hell? I mean, there's no guarantee that it's Dio, but surely it's heavily implied to be, because I mean, who else is it going to be? I mean, maybe it's one of the Pillarmen? And in fact, just hold that thought for a second, because by virtue of the stone masks existing in the first place, does that mean that there is, or I should say there was, alternate universe versions of the Pillarmen? And if so, that just makes me so ridiculously keen to see a flashback of, say, alternate universe Joseph and whatever the equivalent of their battle tendency events were. But the raging tsunami of thoughts bombarding my mind did not stop there, because on that very same page we saw Enya again, which isn't necessarily anything special on its own because she was in Steel Ball Run, although, I don't know at this point, who knows if that was actually her or just a character bearing a startling resemblance, because the key thing about Enya in this chapter is that she is wielding the stand arrows, which should not exist in this world because we have a different mechanism by which we gain stands in parts 7 and 8, which isn't to say that they definitely cannot exist. I just ask myself why though, because they serve no greater purpose in the alternate universe, much like the stone mask. And this is probably an insane thought, but the thing that came to mind for me was maybe what we are seeing is not the alternate universe. Perhaps what we're seeing is a brief flashback to the original universe, and Araki is implying that Rocuments also existed there as well, retroactively labeling Enya, Dio, and even potentially Hermes as Rocuments, which is something that I do really like the idea of, because it would thread part 8 well and truly in with the core fabric of JoJo, but it is possibly quite a bit of a stretch to make. Mostly because of how these panels play out sequentially. You know, we see the Steel Ball Run stuff, which we'll talk about in a second because there's a lot there as well, but then we cut to the stone mask, then Enya, and then it's immediately Josephumi and Kira in alternate universe Morio, which I suppose would imply that this is a chronological order of events. And the other thing that very much goes against my idea is the fact that while Dio and Enya can safely fit into the whole Rocuments thing, Hermes is a bit trickier. I mean, Rocuments are described as fundamentally independent and have no families, which is certainly not true. In fact, family was the greatest driving factor of the Hermes character, and she also formed a very strong bond with JOJOLION, which we are told should not be possible for Rocuments. So as much as it might have been a fun idea to think about, I do think what we are seeing here is more than likely strictly alternate universe stuff, which is fascinating in its own right because it evokes so much. Like, it's seriously amazing how Araki can show 2 simple panels of a stone mask, and the thoughts that spawn from that are just so vast and sprawling, which occurs a lot in this chapter, and it really was a pure pleasure to read. More of this though. My favorite part of chapter 99 was seeing the Steel Ball Run cast, because it is still far and away my favorite part, and just being able to see the phenomenal duo of Johnny and Gyro again makes this chapter for me. Everything else could have been utter garbage, and I still would have loved it. Although thankfully everything else is also incredibly solid and meaty, so we have no worries there. But it does appear in the ever-intriguing montage segment, after we're told that Rocuments have a fascination with ground, rock, and stone, seeing blessings from the earth as true benefits, and then make quote-unquote special places that give Rocuments special power. The implication being that the Devil's Palm and the Ground of Morio would have been said special and or sacred places, both of which we know how they came to be via corpsey power, the second of which was due to Johnny. But what is this part with Lucy? Why is she in Morio? Why does she work with the Speedwagon Foundation, which is now a thing in this universe by the way? And why does Lucy look so damn ominous? Like, if I didn't know any better, and actually I most certainly don't, it looks like Lucy is making the decision to leave the Holy Corpse in Morio for reasons. I don't know what those reasons are, but we never actually found out what happened to the corpse after Johnny's death. I mean, there were just a bunch of agents present, one of which very much could have been Lucy looking at it again, and that may quite well explain the ongoing shenaniganry of Morio. But that does go on to be weird again, because does that imply that Lucy is purposely creating or cultivating this place of power, and may or may not be a Rockhuman herself? I mean, I don't think so, because it doesn't match her personality profile at all, but I suppose that the Holy Corpse is either still in Morio, which would be very exciting, or that the effect of the corpse is more or less permanent, and that Morio is now going to be this eternally twisted place. So much to think about, and yet so little of the chapter actually reviewed at this point. Should probably move on. And in fact, one very important thing to mention is that the thread of this chapter is Toru, who once again has snapped back into the position of big bad guy thing. I mean, the cover page of the chapter is practically spelling out the fact that the head doctor is indeed his stand, and while I still think that's kind of insane, I do have to admit that so are all of the stands wielded by the primary antagonists of any given JoJo series. I mean, I was still kind of hoping that it would be Jobin because Toru came out of nowhere, comparatively that is, and I still don't have the same sort of vibe with him that I did with, say, Valentine, Pucci, Diavolo, or name any other main antagonist really. So it will be interesting to see if he actually is defeated right here and now, because it would seem like a bit of a stretch to reveal him as the grand central master of anti-human chaos, just to have Josuke deal with him immediately. I feel like that would be pretty unsatisfying, but who knows? Because we very much do need to deal with this whole endless calamity business before anything else can really happen. That or Yasuho is just going to spend the remainder of the series writhing in agony on the ground. Also possible. It could very well be a Steel Ball Run scenario though, where the main antagonist is taken out, and then the more epilogic section of the story focuses on Jobin, much like how Diego was used in Part 7. I can't say I have any particularly strong thoughts on the confrontation between Josuke, the Wonder of You, which is the name of the head doctor stand, and Mamazuku. I feel like we're still very much in the same place as we left off before, just with slightly more information, and Josuke having a bit more crap on his face. And you know what, actually, with the whole Toru as the main antagonist thing coming to fruition, I think I said last chapter that wouldn't it be cool if Josuke dealt with this whole fight while sitting down? Well, that has been taken to a whole new level now, so wouldn't it be cool if Josuke defeated the main antagonist of the series whilst remaining completely sedentary? It would certainly be different. But an unexpected highlight of this chapter for me was seeing a bit of Mamazuka'S past, and I think this was very necessary because in the same way that Toru is a late emerging main antagonist, Mamazuka was also a bit of a late Joe bro in the grand scheme of things. So it's nice to see he's being expanded upon and incorporated directly into the whole head doctor business, with the calamity claiming the life of his father. It just gives him such a great purpose to be right here, right now with Josuke, facing off against the Wonder of You, and for the first time in the series, I feel somewhat connected to him. I mean, I've always liked Mamazuka because he's quirky and supremely analytical, but to say that I've ever felt anything for him before now, it would definitely be a lie. But that has very much changed as a result of this chapter, and I am much more invested in his general existence. And furthermore, I look forward to seeing how he and Josuke end up overcoming the popsicle sticks of doom. But yeah, look, I know there's probably a lot about chapter 99 that I didn't even touch on, but all in all, it was a fantastic experience that took us on a journey through the history of JoJo in a really compelling way. And at this point, I simply cannot wait to see what chapter 100 has in store for us. But what do you guys think? Please do let me know down in the comments below, or even join my Discord server. And if you're keen for some more JoJo content, then please do go and check out some of my other videos, or even subscribe to the channel for regular JoJo wonder delivered straight to your YouTube feed. But for now, this has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time.